So now, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the top five. We are in the top five of the Scout the Statline shortstops, and all of these names are going to be really enjoyable to talk about. They should be all well known. Let's start off with the first. And the first one's going to be with the Tampa Bay Rays. He's a round one pick, 28 overall, out of Torrey Pines, San Diego, California high school. He's 6'1", 180 pounds. He's only 20 years old. Mr. Carson Williams. I love Carson Williams. I'm going to throw that out there right now. Let's break down his 2023 stats. I'm not going to go back to 22 and 21, but in 2023, he's seen three different affiliates. He got high A, double A, and triple A, all at the tender age of 20 years old. He's going to start the season at 21, but very young. He was born 6/25. So in 2023, his minor league stats look as he had 435 at-bats, 257 average, 356 on base, 497 slugging, and an on-base plus slugging of 859. He had 20 stolen bases, 23 home runs. He struck out 158 times and 59 walks, 21 doubles, 7 triples. He's spraying it all over the ballpark. But man, are they promoting him aggressively. They're just letting the kid work, like putting the grease on it.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like the bump up to AAA was a little bit of an anomaly. I mean, they had all those issues going on after the Wander Franco stuff, and so they bumped him up there. And I think there was no real intention to keep him there. I think they just were looking to fill a spot, and he was the logical choice. So I don't know how much I'm putting into that, and that does boost him a little bit in the rankings at Scout the Statline as well, because he's conquered another level at the age of 20, which is impressive, right? So that's a consideration here. But he does have really interesting power. He's got really interesting speed. I've been on the Carson wagon, sort of bandwagon, a little bit since he debuted. But one thing, the big red flag for Carson Williams is his strikeout rate. Huge red flag, especially compared to all the other players, even a Shedry Vargas. 31% this year, ballooned all the way up to 40% in only 15 plate appearances at AAA. But still, that's something that you want to keep a close eye on, because he's going to have to bring that lower. So now I've heard the story that he's this great studious hitter, and he may very well be that. But when you're striking out that much, that narrative doesn't stick with me quite as well. I'm expecting the very studious hitters not to strike out very much. So that's the one thing that I would watch and be wary of. But I am interested in Carson Williams. His path to playing at shortstop is very dependent on the Franco situation. I don't see him supplanting Franco if he turns out to, not get himself banned for life or whatever. If he does, it's going to be competitive still. He's still going to have some competition. There's some players that the Rays can plug into that position. Hell, they can even move Junior Caminero over there if they need to. They've got options. So he's still going to have competition, but it's very dependent on what happens with Franco, in my opinion.
I love the comp that Scout the Statline has given to Carson Williams. And this is because of everything that you just said. And it's Todd Frazier. Yeah. Todd Frazier. I think we all love Todd Frazier, right? Like he was a really good ball player. There was just some flaws there that he worked through for a little bit and then kind of fell back into, was an all-star, kind of fell back into some flaws, was an all-star again, and then kind of fell back into the flaws, and then eventually retired. Todd Frazier could and was really good, right? Do you understand where I'm kind of coming from with that?
40 home run season.
Yeah.
I do. And I do feel like if Carson Williams doesn't address the strikeouts, he will follow a similar path, or he could, which is not necessarily a bad thing. As you mentioned, Frazier had some really good seasons in there, but those kind of weaknesses tend to be exploited at the major leagues over time. Yep. And so if you don't learn at a young age, hopefully at a young age, to start addressing them, you might find success and eventually they'll figure you out. And if your skills aren't continuing to improve, as you mature, any sort of small regression can have huge results in how you're producing on the field. So, I mean, think of a guy like Joey Gallo. This is just an example, but he was able to do it for a while. And then, who knows what it was? Maybe his swing slowed down just by a microsecond, or maybe his vision deteriorated by just one microchasm, but that one little bit makes all the difference in the world for whether he's going to be successful at the major league level versus not. So you really have almost no margin for error at all if you're running out there with that kind of profile. So he's got to be very on point.
Yep.
And I would just feel way more comfortable if he addressed that issue now, before he heads into the major leagues.
Let's be honest here, buddy. He's only 20 years old. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
And you can do it. We've seen people make insane strides over the years. Matt Olson in the major leagues, he did this a few years back, just cutting that strikeout rate almost in half. Ronald Acuna, I mean, he was already an exceptional talent, but cutting his strikeout rate in half turns him into already arguably the number one, now definitely the number one. It's not even questionable.
Cody
Bellinger, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I see so many. I see so many good things out of Carson Williams that I'm all in on it. I'm all in. And even if he has a career like Todd Frazier, man, I'd be happy with that. Todd Frazier was a good ball player.
You could do worse, that's for sure.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Whether or not he's a go get him, I think, is again dependent on value and expectation, right? So I'm a little bit more leery of the strikeouts, so I'm probably a little more risk averse to Carson Williams. But I felt like he was a go get him last year, and even before that, the year before, I thought he was really a go get him. Now, he's moving up rankings ever so slowly, maybe even more aggressively at the end of last year. Harder to give that ringing endorsement, but it's really going to depend on what the owner thinks he's worth. Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. It depends on the owner, because you could have to pay an absolute premium here, or you could get him for dirt cheap. It just depends on what the owner wants to do there.
I'm not going to be one of them that's shelling out major prices for Carson Williams because of the risk.
Yeah. Okay, there we are. We are in the top 5 already. Already in the top 5. I think I'm a little bit surprised about this one. A little bit, but then once we start talking about it, you're going to be like, why haven't we been talking about Matt Shaw all year long? Why hasn't everybody just said, dude, you guys got to go get Matt Shaw? Matt Shaw with the Double-A affiliate with the Chicago Cubs. He's 5'11", 185 pounds. He is 22 years old, but he was drafted in round 1, pick 13 overall in 2023 out of College, Maryland. And all he did this year was bat .357 with an on base of 400, slugs 618 with an on base percentage of an on base plus slugging of 1.018. That's 8 home runs, 15 stolen bases, 25 strikeouts, 9 walks in 157 at bats. My God, Matt Shaw, you are a man amongst children. What do you say, Ross?
All right. So Matt Shaw was the 13th overall pick in the draft this year. So he wasn't totally unknown. He's a first rounder. He was absolutely tearing the cover off the ball when he first came up, and he garnered a comp to, and I was almost like, this concerned me because nobody can live up to these expectations, but he's the first player ever that I've seen that garnered a comp to Barry Bonds.
Nice.
For a brief period of time. It didn't last too long, but he was ripping the cover off the ball. And at that point, what do you say? I mean, the machine is pulling out the results based on performance data. You know, who am I to dispute that? I don't think I didn't think it was going to last, and sure enough, it didn't. But he did have a really strong debut. Interestingly, you know, he wasn't doing it with the insane plate discipline, and this is one of the reasons I didn't love the Barry Bonds comp, because we all know Barry Bonds took a walk. Matt Shaw, not so much, but he was slugging. He was, you know, hitting for average. He was doing everything else, stealing bases. So he looks interesting. I'm holding back slightly just because I'm going to say, like, I want to see more. It's a small sample. He's got 170 career plate appearances in the minor leagues so far. The plate discipline is okay, but it's not great. It's not what I would like in my prospect, especially a guy that's coming out of college and playing at some of these levels. But he did get up to Double-A, and he held his own there. So I just want to see a little bit more before I make my stance on whether or not he's going to be somebody I give a ringing endorsement to or not. That's kind of where I sit on
it. The only thing that I want to poke a hole in your analysis there was, you said Barry Bonds could take a walk. Like, I get it. Barry Bonds could take a walk, but he was given a million of those things.
Oh, yeah. Of course he was. Because if you didn't give him a walk, he was going to hit a bomb. Like it.
That was the only hole I wanted to plug in there.
Yeah.
But Matt Shaw, man, everything he's done. What's his college stats look like? Do you got those in front of you?
I do. Yeah. So in college, I'll give you his career slash to start, and then I'll finish with his final year, which prompted him to be the 13th overall pick. His career slash was 320, 413. 623, so pretty good, solid numbers across the board. He was pretty good in summer leagues too. Actually, he was really good in summer leagues, which may bode well for him as a professional using the wood bat. I mean, I'm looking through this and looks like he was crushed it every year in the summer leagues. So his last year at Maryland, he slashed 341, 445, 697, 24 home runs, which was his career high, 18 stolen bases, only got caught stealing once. Also his career high was that 18 stolen bases. He walked 43 times and struck out 42. So pretty good, solid final season in college. Yeah. Certainly nothing to sniff at or, hold your nose up at by any means.
So once again, depending on owner, whether owner really loves college bats, really believes in first year player stats, stuff like that, this could be cheap, but it shouldn't be. It should be a high price to pay. I'm saying go get him. I really like Matt Shaw, and I love him in the Cubs organization.
So the one reason I'm kind of shying away from that is that I've seen him going like top 15 in drafts.
That's tough.
I mean, we're talking about overall prospects. So not just like FYPD. FYPD is easy top 15. He's top 10. easily top 10, I think. But when we're talking about overall, I think that's getting pretty aggressive when I just have a couple question marks still out there. So I just want to see a little bit more before I'm making a decision on him. But it's promising. Right now, what we're seeing is pretty nice.
Shit, you could be too late if you want to see more. He might be in the major leagues this year. Who knows?
Well, yeah, and here's the thing, like you can here's a guy like Matt Shaw, you can wait on a little bit, right? Because he already came in as the 13th pick. It's not like he came in and the people that were going to get him early on, FYPD or whatever it might be, didn't know about him. He's well known enough, and then he's hitting well. Like, what is the draw to go get him at this moment? Without waiting for validation. You can sit and wait and see if he answers those question marks and then pay the same price to acquire him that you might pay right now. So that's why I'm saying I would hold off and just wait until I gathered some more information, more intel on him. But yeah, certainly looks promising. Power, speed combination. Right now he's projecting for 27 home runs and 26 stolen bases without regression. All of his tools grade as above average with a 65 for his hit tool. So pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff.
I love it. We're in top 3.
One more thing before we get there. His comp is AJ Pollock, which I think is and he's still playing, which I think is pretty fitting because of the power speed combo that Pollock had during his peak years, where he was a pretty certain 2020 kind of guy. Maybe not certain now that I'm looking at it. I guess he had the 2020 potential. Those stolen bases have kind of dried up, and he's not quite the player he used to be. But he was pretty intriguing for a while.
Yeah, I get it. All right, top 3.
I love these top 3.
I do too. These are going to be really tough to talk about. I don't know if I can make it through these. We might have to end it early tonight, not make it to number 1. But here we go. Number 3 is my favorite in the top 3, to be completely honest with you. And that's going to be Mr. Jet Williams. My favorite in the top 3 is Mr. Jet Williams. And Jet Williams is with the AA affiliate with the New York Mets. He is 20 years old. He is only 5'6", 175 pounds. But he was born in November. He was born on November 3rd. November 3rd in Dallas, Texas. Drafted by the New York Mets in round 1, pick 14 overall in Rockwall Heath, Texas. And all Mr. Jet Williams has done in his career is in 442 at-bats, batted .262, on-base percentage of .421, slugged .450 with an on-base plus slugging of .871, 14 home runs, 51 stolen bases. He has struck out 124 times and walked 108. He couples that with 23 doubles, 3 triples, spraying it all over the ballpark, stealing bags whenever he wants to. He is all the way up to AA at 20 years old and will play all of 2024 at 20 years old, most likely in AAA. I would like to see major league level. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's a little bit young for that. I would say 2025 is more realistic, but I love Jet Williams.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see how he does at AA more.
Yeah.
But this is one of my favorite prospects in the moment. In fact, he was in my Fab 5. I extended it. Remember, it was core 4, and then I added Jet Williams. I was like, okay, all right, enough with this business. The core 4, it's the Fab 5. We got to add Jet Williams. So Jumbo Jet Williams. He's a really, really good prospect. Diminutive, only 5'6". He's short, but this guy is stacked, and he's got an engine, And he's a speed demon, 45 stolen bases on the year, really impressive. He's got power, packs a punch, 13 home runs, which I think will play up when he gets a little bit older as he matures, and exceptional plate discipline, which I love, of course. 104 walks on the season. He walked over 100 times. It's pretty good. And 118 strikeouts. So really good numbers from what I'm looking at. I really like Jet Williams. He's projecting to be nearly a 2020 sort of talent with high potential OBPs and skills that kind of are across the board. So I'm a big fan, and I'm going to say go get him right now. Go get Jet Williams. Is he going to be cheap? No. But you're going to pay for it because he's going to be good.
So. I also did, and New York Mets fans or just fantasy baseball fans in general, I believe this is going to be your second baseman of the future. He's not going to play shortstop. I think Ronnie Mauricio will play shortstop. I think Jet Williams will be your second baseman of the future. I think he's going to be your all-star second baseman of the future in a black hole of a position anyways. And I see Jose Altuve written all over this.
I think there's less bat here, more OBP focus and a little more power than Altuve had coming up anyway. Altuve developed his power a little bit later. From a speed perspective, I think that makes sense. I hope that Jet Williams' legs last maybe a little bit longer. Altuve's still doing okay, I guess, in that regard. But yeah, okay. I could see it a little bit, but we're going to see a different sort of bat from my perspective. Okay. And I think STS is queuing in on that a little bit. He's projecting to hit 241 with a 350 OBP. So there's a pretty sizable gap between those because he walks a lot. He gets on base.
Yeah.
Love guys that get on base. So I do anyway.
What's his comp on STS?
He gets Tommy Agee, which we've seen before many times. Tommy Agee was in the 60s primarily. And he's one of those guys that was sort of a power speed guy all around. Pretty solid talent. Yeah.
In my perspective, I don't care what you have to pay for him. I think you have to go get him. Obviously, maybe the guy in front of him you can give up for him, not the guy in front of not our number one tonight. You're not going to trade that guy away, but Jet Williams, I really do. I believe you need to give up whatever that owner wants, as long as it's not crushing your dreams. Give it up. Go get Jet Williams. He's my guy. I'm playing the flag, man.
I'm big on him. I don't know if I'm giving up this next guy for him. I might be holding steady, but I can see your logic there. Yeah. And he certainly has a little more certainty associated with him. But yeah,
well, let's do it. Sure. Let's talk about him. Let's talk about this 6 foot 195 pounder that's 18 years old and was drafted by the Seattle Mariners in round 1, pick number 22 overall. He came out of high school at a Glen, New Concord, Ohio. His name is Mr. Colt Emerson, and Emerson's big old. Never mind. He had 91 at bats this year. He batted .374. Had an on-base percentage of .496, and he slugged .549, on-base plus slugging 1.045. He had 2 different affiliates. So he started in the rookie ball, only had 28 bats there, but then got called up single A affiliate at only 18 years old and had 63 at bats there. He will play the majority of the season at 18 years old. Probably going to see Double A by the time he sees 19. Very impressive numbers. Go ahead, Ross. Let's hear it about Colt Emerson.
Alrighty. Qualified as a 17-year-old for the season.
Yeah.
Incredible numbers with that context. I did a piece on him for the next big thing. Go check it out because I think that's going to give you all the details and information you want about Colt Emerson. But I think he's an exceptional talent. Walking nearly as often as he struck out shows he's got an advanced approach. He had 2 home runs on the season, which you'd like to see more. But again, we're talking about a 17-year-old that split time between rookie and single A. So I'm not worried about that. I think it's going to come. And from what I've read and researched, it sounds like he's got some juice in his swing, a lot more than people were expecting. And he's got speed, 8 stolen bases, didn't get caught stealing. I'm not giving this guy up, man. I'm holding on to this guy. I'm keeping him. I think this guy's got it, man. And I'm saying this, it's only 114 plate appearances, small sample size, but I'm giving him the ringing endorsement. I'm holding on to Colt Emerson. I'm seeing some serious talent here, and I think you want this guy on your roster. Go get him now. And serious kudos to the Mariners for drafting. I mean, they've been incredible in finding talents. He was drafted number 22 overall. As I said in the next big thing, that's way too low for the talent that I think we've got here in Colt Emerson. So kudos to them for just being so savvy with their recent draft picks. I mean, just before that, the year before that, they had Cole Young, who's also one of my favorite talents. So they're doing something right in that organization. And I think you want to roster Colt Emerson. Now, the competition is going to be in the middle infield between Cole Young and Colt Emerson on who's going to be the guys coming up. And they got Ty Pete down there. They got all sorts. They got a glut of talent in the middle infield as well. So really excited about Colt Emerson. And I say, go get him.
I love it. I love it. I don't have anything else to add because I like Colt Emerson too. Just not as much as Jet Williams. All right. Well, so here it is, fellas. Ladies and gentlemen, our number 1 overall shortstop, everybody's number 1 overall shortstop. Matter of fact, before I get into this, Colt Emerson, is he a future number 1 overall prospect?
I'm gonna stop short of that.
Okay.
I think the talent is there and possible.
Blockers.
I think we're gonna have to see how the start of next year goes. I'm one that I'm gonna wait until we got a little bit of data trickling in. But as soon as that data is coming in, I'm gonna start planting my flag. And here's the guy that I planted my flag on this year. And I said, this guy is your number 1 prospect. I got on a podcast and I said, somebody were like, yeah, I was kind of debating the number 1. I was like, there's no debate. This guy is your number 1 prospect. And you could see it in the numbers early on in the season.
So, yeah, this is wild. This is wild. And yes, Ross last offseason, as we were going through things, was just glowing reports about Mr. Jackson Holliday. Mr. Jackson Holliday is only 19 years old. He will be 20 in a few days. He'll be at 20 in a few days. He was born on 12/04 in 2003 in Austin, Texas. He was drafted in 2022 by the Baltimore Orioles in round 1, pick 1 overall, high school, Stillwater, Oklahoma. Obviously, he's got the bloodline, right? He's got Matt Holliday, and Josh Holliday is his nephew. Jackson Holliday is Josh Holliday's nephew, and then his dad is Matt Holliday. But what's wild here is
Josh Holliday.
What? Huh?
Who the fuck is Josh Holliday?
I don't know. That's just telling me what I'm just reading it off the script here in MILB.
Okay. All right.
Josh Holliday was a minor league catcher for the Washington Nationals.
All right.
So there it is.
I did not know that.
So, Jackson Holiday, let's not piddle fuck around here. Let's dive right into what he did in 2023. We've already talked about 2022. So he's seen 4 different affiliates in 2023. He has 477 at bats. He averaged 323 with an on-base percentage of 442 and slugged 499 with an on-base percentage plus slugging of 941. Season overall, he had 13 home runs, 28 stolen bases, 35 doubles, 9 triples, strikeouts, and walks. He only had 130 strikeouts. He had 126 walks. The guy, he's a machine. And he's only 19 years old. He's already in AAA. Probably going to be playing in Major League Baseball next season. Does he start there? I doubt it. I would see we're probably going to see a call up later on in the season, but kid's on a rocket ship to Mars. Matter of fact, he went past Mars and went straight to Jupiter.
Yeah, there was a tweet that I sent out on April 14th of last year. And it said, it's early, obviously, but let's take a quick peek at the top 2 picks in last year's draft. Jackson Holiday, 348, 483, 609, 6 walks, 3 strikeouts. Drew Jones, 53, 182, 53, 3 walks, 10 strikeouts. And here's the caveat. I'm confident Jones's talent will catch up, and I still believe that. But Holiday looks like a number 1 overall prospect to me. And sure enough, I think if it's not unanimous, it's fairly close that Holiday is the number 1 prospect almost across the board. There's some discrepancies out there. And there's some debates too. Like you could say Caminero, and I wouldn't be upset about that. You know, you could say Wyatt Langford, and I wouldn't be upset about that. I don't think you could say anyone else without me throwing a fit, but hey, that's pretty good. There's a couple guys out there that you could debate it with. Jackson Holiday had an incredible season, and as you mentioned, worked his way all the way up to AAA as a 19-year-old, and will likely be in the major leagues next season. There is, if anyone is going to pick any issues with his performance, it's going to be that he didn't demonstrate a lot of power.
Pretty good.
But we were talking about a 19-year-old that worked his way across the minor leagues. I mean, he went to 4 different levels in 2023. Single A, high A, double A, triple A. And he was competent at every single level. And he hit home runs at every single level too. So, you know, he's not somebody that's swinging a wet noodle. And I've said this, and I stand by this, and I will continue beating this drum. Power is usually the last thing to show up. We're talking about a 19-year-old kid whose dad, by the way, is Matt Holliday. Do you think he's not going to thicken up a little bit and start hitting bombs? You think he doesn't have 30 home run potential? Because I certainly think that that's in there. And if you couple that with an exceptional bat, I mean, that's dangerous. It's dangerous. He doesn't have Junior Caminero power right now. But down the road, could he? Maybe. It might be a stretch. I don't think it's going to be as natural, but he might be able to reach it easier because of that exceptional bat. So, in my mind, I've had Jackson Holiday, the number 1 prospect all year, and I think he's your guy. I think he's your guy going forward. Obviously, you want to get him, but everybody thinks he's the number 1 prospect now. Your time to go get him was, I don't know, mid-season at the latest. So
I think it's a moot point to even argue it. I think this is your clear number 1 overall prospect. I don't even think you argue Langford or Caminero. You just can't. Not with that average. What he's doing with that average at 19 years old is absolutely ridiculous. Like you said, he's putting the barrel on the ball, and it's not small numbers. He's getting doubles. He's getting triples. He's getting an occasional home run. This isn't, like you said, he's not swinging a wet noodle. The kid's doing things. As far as me diving into complete stats for the past, I don't know, 8 years or so, he's doing things that I can't ever recollect a 19-year-old doing other than one person, and that would be Juan Soto.
Well, I mean, you got a couple in there. You got a Wander Franco. You got a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You know, you got a couple of those guys that were really absurd.
Yeah.
But yeah, point taken. Point well taken.
Yeah. So yeah, he's an absolute go get him, but what are you gonna have to pay? You're gonna have to give up your whole every all-star that's on your team. If you have Soto or Franco or whoever you think is your best player, you're gonna have to give him up plus to get Jackson Holiday. And I would recommend not doing that because we're talking about a 19-year-old.
The package I did during this season to get Jackson Holiday, which I am still okay with and endorse, is I gave up Jackson Chorio and Jordan Walker to receive Jackson Holiday. I knew it was a huge price to pay, but I was willing to pay it, and I wouldn't endorse anyone going much above that to try to obtain them. If that's what people are going to ask you for or more, you know, the deal is off the table. You got to find somebody else. You got to find the next Jackson Holiday. Yeah. The great thing about baseball, especially dynasty format baseball, is there's always a next guy.
Yep.
You got to find that guy before he becomes the Jackson Holiday that you wanted to get. Yeah. And we'll help you. We'll get you there.
For sure. Last little tidbit that I'd like to add, and I thought about this when I was on my trip to Lambeau, is there's things that you can see during pro football games or baseball games. In my mind, so this was my first trip to a NFL game, and what completely stood out to me was the speed. The speed of the game blew me away. I know you watch it on TV and you go, God, you know, how can that guy miss that catch? Or how can this guy do this? Or how do you miss that tackle? The speed blew me out of the freaking water. It is so fast, guys. It's unbelievable. Now, I want to link that to baseball, because if you've never been to a pro baseball game or even a minor league baseball game, what strikes me comparatively to football players, and yes, football players are big, but baseball players they're just thick guys, right? Like their forearms are like, you wouldn't, the skinniest guy on the team, let's say Ruiz, that kid's thick. I don't care. He's a thick kid. And how long of a drive a home run is, you guys would be blown away if you've never seen one in person. Pro sports are a completely different animal. Go out, watch it, see it for yourselves. It'll blow your mind. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, nothing to that. Maybe to Jackson Holiday.
Yeah.
Two more comments. He's probably one of the only, if not the only player in our system that has an 80 grade for his hit tool, Scout grade equivalency. And you guys know how I love the hit tool. And he draws a comp to Keith Hernandez, who was a first baseman from the 70s. And he won an MVP award, but they're queuing in on, he wasn't a power hitting first baseman. He wasn't one of those guys, despite that MVP award. He was a consistent, high average type of guy, high on base type of guy. Had occasional home runs, kind of almost like a Mark Grace sort of profile. So
makes sense.
Very interesting. Yep. Hopefully we see a little bit more power. I think we will. I think he'll develop into a 20, 30 home run guy down the road. So that's dangerous if you get that bat with that power.
Yeah. With that, Statliners, we just crushed the top 10 shortstops of scoutthestatline.com. Next up's going to be third baseman, guys. We're going to have third baseman coming to you next week. I enjoy it, Ross. I enjoy talking with you, my friend. We're going to hit third baseman next week, and I hope to see you all real soon.